Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a bit tonight in the context of this first unit on new ideas, and specifically answering the question, how? How are ideas produced in the academy? And perhaps more importantly, how should you prepare to be part of this dynamic culture? I'm hoping my outfit, what my daughter calls getting my Hogwarts on, is making you all feel sufficiently underdressed, even as it makes me feel incredibly overheated. This from someone whose summer job during college was giving musket and cannon firing demonstrations while dressed as an 18th century British soldier. That uniform was comprised of 12 pounds of wool, which in August didn't make a lot of sense. But then again, neither did what I wore to work when I was sometimes called upon by the local animal shelter as a teenager to perform the Good Woofer, a canine character who helped small children learn the basics of pet etiquette. Ordinarily, the woofer was played by another, for whom the costume was constructed. While she was on the short side, I was tall for my age, and the eye holes in the overlarge headpiece sat squarely in front of my chin. As a result, I couldn't see. And my good woofer alarmed young audiences appearing to be afflicted with mild dementia, walking into walls and waving at empty space. Anyway, except for one or two odd ducks around town, though, you probably will not see faculty members dressed as I am until commencement. Back in the day, however, this was what was worn at the first universities in the 11th and 12th centuries in Italy and France. Oxford and Cambridge, established around a century later, codified to a large extent the academic costume, a tradition that connects us to the medieval university. In the Middle Ages, men and women wore a tunic with a cloak and hood. The first university students sported the same style of clothing as everyone else, except for one small but significant difference. Their outer cloak was closed, with openings made for the hands. In the Renaissance, trends in fashion and thought made the costume less constrictive in length and more open, discarding the heavy outer dress and turning the undergarment, the tunic, into the new outer garment. And yes, for those of you keeping track, that suggests that I'm standing before you wearing my underwear on the outside, a notion that never fails to reduce my 5-year-old son to concentrated laughter. Perhaps in a nod to our puritanical origins, however, the American gown is still closed at the front. The stylistic similarity to parish robes is indicative of the close tie between learning and the church in those early years. The first universities began life as religious schools around cathedrals or monasteries, and their students were understood to be in minor holy orders. Thus, wearing these robes is always, for me, a good reminder that all of this began with religion. The word professor derives from the Middle English verb meaning to take religious vows or to be admitted into a religious order. To profess denotes not only the public affirmation of knowledge, but also a confession of allegiance to a community. Entering the academy, as one of the characters in Shakespeare's late play, The Winter's Tale, observes, it is required you do awaken your faith. Specifically, your faith in a process of making meaning and a practice of taking leaps with one another, and for yourself. What binds us together is a very long tradition of scholarly inquiry. Now, when Dean Steinbeck said he wanted me to talk a bit about scholarship, I immediately had a flashback. One of the English professors I adored when I was in college once spent about 10 minutes talking about a recent piece he had written. It was a 17-page essay, complete with a baker's dozen of footnotes and a bibliography containing more than 60 books and articles, all analyzing a single period at the end of one sentence in James Joyce's 600-page novel, Ulysses. My response was equal parts incredulity and jealousy. I marveled that he could produce that many pages on what seemed an insignificant topic, yet the way he talked about it made it seem the most interesting and important thing in the world. Indeed, I never looked at punctuation quite the same way again. Now, as powerful as that moment was for me, I didn't want to sidetrack tonight's talk rhapsodizing about any single project, but rather to focus more broadly on the vital practice of the university and your relationship to it. Scholarship, as a noun, can refer to the material fruits of academic inquiry. Currently, I serve on the University Personnel Committee, which reviews the achievements of faculty members going up for tenure and promotion. And every spring, I'm invigorated by and proud of what my colleagues are producing: published books, studies, and essays, research projects that earn grants, performances, recitals, and exhibitions. Now, reading, writing, thinking, and creating are usually solitary activities. What animates these practices is the act of conversation, when these products go out into the world and speak to and through one another. Now, this act occurs in academic journals and at professional conferences, on stages and in galleries worldwide. Despite the cliché of faculty members squirreling away in labs and libraries, scholarship is fiercely dialogic, engaging with voices and ideas from the past as well as the present. Reading, writing, thinking, and creating don't occur in a vacuum, but in a community, committed to a shared vision of hopeful and insatiable curiosity, to kinetic intellectual exchange and critical conversation, to informed, productive disagreement. Now, here at EIU, this community not only extends to the classroom, it often begins there. Indeed, what distinguishes us from larger universities is that these accomplishments aren't what we do besides teaching. Rather, they are what we do as teachers. At EIU, we conceptualize scholarship as a verb, emphasizing the process of academic inquiry as much as the product. In other words, what matters to us, far more than anything we produce, is how we produce it. Now, students seem genuinely unaware of the anticipatory glee with which faculty contemplate the new semester or the next class session, and the sheer exhilaration we feel in working with you. A dynamic classroom produces wonder in the minds of all involved, and students often are taken aback by my exhibitions of pure delight as we participate in our shared endeavor. The truth is that we leap with you. We think through this material with you. We too strive to make the time we spend together mean something. We feel pride and indeed thrive on what we accomplish here, of what we accomplish together. Its meaning is simultaneously collaborative and intensely personal. Its meaning has force and responsibility. Now, over the past few decades, there's been a shift in emphasis from teaching, in which the focus is on the professor, to learning, in which the focus is on the student. One of the reasons I find this change compelling is because of how often I feel like a student in my own classroom. A lecture could dictate all of the salient points about a given text that I see, yet what it eliminates are those that the students see that I do not. As a result, I take notes in my classroom rather than read from them, many times remaining long after the students have departed to record the insights they contributed. Despite their advanced degrees, good teacher scholars never complete their studies, and attending EIU, particularly as an honors student, means that you are a vital part of the production of knowledge, the evolution of thought and expression. The honors classroom here at EIU is understood as, and sometimes literally is, a laboratory, within which meaning is both produced and sought after. The conversation begins there, but extends far beyond it, collectively developing our knowledge within the disciplines. At the same time, it informs our understandings of ourselves, our relationships with one another, and with the world around us. It serves as a model for the examined life. I often ask students at the start of the term to write out the questions that keep them awake at night. And I don't mean anxieties about GPA or tests or your love life, your future job. We're talking about the biggies, the really terrifying ones that keep you awake because of their complexity, their immensity, their danger. Take a minute and think. What are your nagging questions? An equally urgent question is, what are you actively doing about those questions? A student in my first-year honors writing seminar last year said to me that his goal for the term was to write what he called something that meant something. It was an ambitious, audacious aspiration. Think a moment about your goals for yourself this semester and reject any that involve good grades. Ultimately, the sense of your work's value, its success, its meaning must come from you. Now, I'm sure you all came here with the assumption that you would be doing an intense amount of writing, as well as reading and thinking over the next few years, and you will be. It's that adverb, though, that gives us pause. How does one write meaningfully, or read meaningfully, or think meaningfully, or create meaningfully? Now, if answering these questions should be among the goals of every student who comes to college, they also encapsulate the practice of the academy, not only creating meaning, but doing so meaningfully. Sitting in this seat, you have accepted an invitation to the academy, not to sit and watch, but to participate in this exchange. If in high school the focus is on passive competency, the mastery of basic skills, in college you have a central role in the project of exploration. Doing your part here means far more than doing your homework and getting an A. True engagement means sharing everything you bring with you to the classroom, your experiences, as well as your questions and uncertainties. Participation in a college-level honors course means careful, full preparation of the reading, frequent contributions to discussions, risk-taking in writing and thinking. You should come to each session armed with observations, opinions, questions, and insights, ready to take an active part in the ongoing dialogue about the course materials. You must also work to sustain the conversation, that is to say, the class's overall movement and success. Now, if conversation is the motivating spirit of the academy, one of the challenges, especially for those newly arrived, is to learn not just the art, how to listen, how to contribute, but also the contours of true dialogue, what it feels like, what it sounds like. Now, I ask you to read Sherry Turkle's short piece to get you thinking about the kind of interaction that, in a certain way nowadays, structures our waking lives. Despite the fact that we are always communicating, Turkle argues that we have sacrificed conversation for mere connection, preferring to interact via technology that provides the illusion of companionship without the demands of relationship. Now, in contrast to the tightly scripted banter of talk shows, pundit roundtables, Twitter feeds, Facebook updates, and text messaging, meaningful conversation unfolds slowly, teaches patience, and necessitates a surrendering of control, an openness to uncertainty, and periodic silence. Investment in its meandering but purposeful movement. Conversations will matter. Conversations will change your life, but you need to show up for them. Be mercenary in your pursuit of them. And when you find them, whether it's in class or on the quad, take risks to be all in. Put something at stake. Make a commitment to yourself now in terms of your approach to your education in these terms. It will be the most important choice you make while you're here. And then consider the ways in which your practice as a student should also be modified in light of that commitment. From what I've learned from my colleagues and my own experiences, a few humble suggestions. Go and seek out your professors. Go to their office hours. Ask questions. Disagree with them. I was shocked recently when an honor student told me that she had initially avoided coming to office hours because she associated doing so with needing remedial help. Quite the contrary. It's my best students, my favorite students, who make it a habit to extend conversation inside the office door. Take some risks in the courses you choose, the activities you participate in, the people you talk to, the papers you write, the contributions you make in class. Now, doing so requires courage. Contributing, for example, to a brisk class discussion often doesn't provide time to fully think through the contribution. But true learning and meaningful growth don't happen any other way. What risks have you taken today? What will you take tomorrow? Avoid remaining in your comfort zone and not talking in class and justifying the silence by saying you are just the type of person who likes to sit back and listen to what everyone else has to say. Now, certainly, listening is a premium in any class and is a crucial human skill. But real listening only happens in an exchange. Letting everyone else do the talking means that you're not really listening because you're busy keeping yourself safe. And of course, this safety is an illusion. Avoid remaining in your comfort zone and not talking in class and justifying the silence because you assume that you don't know enough to participate in class, and other people, especially those who talk, do. To approach coursework in a way that suggests that one can speak only about what is already known is not only dangerous, it's also intellectually lazy. Stage conversations on your own. Figure out how concepts you're learning in music speak to those you're learning in math. Forge connections between the line of a poem from English class and a sociological theory you're studying in another course. Be open to the way a passage from Shakespeare can express or respond to something challenging you in your personal life. Spend time with what is called nowadays self-inventory. When I used to interview scholarship candidates, I would ask them the following question: what uniquely do you bring to the table? Your grades, your extracurricular activities are all excellent. Your service work, even your hopes of personal and professional fulfillment are great, but every candidate for this scholarship possesses more or less those things. What will you uniquely add to this campus, to this community, to this conversation? Earlier this week, I was speaking to a former student who stated that a philosophy professor he had had was the one who first made him curious. A bit bewildered, I asked him what he was before that. Don't wait to be made curious. Pursue it. Come to class with an agenda. That means coming with lucrative questions and issues that provoke you, and also means responding constructively, respectfully, and energetically to what other colleagues share. Now, all of this sounds like a lot of responsibility, and it is. Keep in mind, though, that you have not only a responsibility to the community in which you reside, but also to yourself during these years, to take advantage of every opportunity to grow, to reach, to explore, to connect, and above all, to enjoy the time spent in pursuit. The British novelist Jeanette Winterson writes, "Pursuing happiness is not at all the same as being happy, which I think is fleeting, dependent on circumstances. If the sun is shining, stand in it. Yes, yes, yes. Happy times are great, but happy times pass. They have to, because time passes. The pursuit of happiness is more elusive. It is lifelong, and it is not goal-centered. What you are pursuing is meaning, a meaningful life." In its broadest terms, research and creativity become not just what you do in class, but the means to explore who you are, what you value, what you want, and how you will contribute. One of the most serious implications for our flight from conversation is what Turkle describes as diminished chances for self-reflection. One of the habits of good education is making time and space for lifelong conversation with oneself. And honors courses take the cultivation of this conversation very seriously. Nowadays, many students arrive with very definite ideas about what they want out of their college education, the jobs they desire after graduating, the training they wish to receive. They have a strong sense of what they feel is valuable and what is worth pursuing, what is useful, what is practical. At Eastern, I think we do a fine job in balancing that kind of development with opportunities for another kind of growth, one whose importance students discover often unexpectedly. Regardless of their subject, university honors courses make the case that there is something to be gained simply by intellectual heavy lifting, by exercising with abstract nouns like truth, love, and infinity, as well as by wrangling with challenging, complex, and impractical ideas. Departmental honors coursework enables students to become more resourceful researchers and interpreters, more reflective and articulate speakers and writers. All honors courses offer not more work, but different work, necessitating a different level of classroom citizenship. They demand that students develop their presence, amplify their voice, sharpen their listening, and drive the inquiry. Internships, mentoring, extracurricular activities, and study abroad opportunities emphasize the profit of experience itself and the connections we draw between academic training and personal maturation. Now, what underlies all facets of the honors experience is a process of critical thinking and organized expression that will prepare you to meet any challenge you encounter here at the university and beyond it. The last line of Turkle's piece is about looking, and the importance of looking away from the screen and towards one another. My area of specialization is dramatic literature, and I have a fair amount of theatrical experience. As a result, I often spend much of the first day of my honors courses doing an activity that students have in recent years found increasingly challenging. And I think part of why it makes them nervous is because we are so unused to and uncomfortable with true engagement with another person. Now, on stage, it is essential for a group of actors to have a connection with one another, that they're not just reciting lines, but they're in dialogue with other characters. The members of a company need to share energy and work together in harmony rather than at odds with one another. The mirror exercise is very routinely practiced in rehearsal to train performers to establish and maintain this required connection. As a way to take up Turkle's challenge, I want to do a session of this exercise tonight. Now look around you. You probably are sitting with colleagues you've met very recently and with whom you may share a class or two or even a floor in a residence hall. Beyond that, look around the room and identify individuals you do not know or haven't yet spoken to. When you identify somebody across the crowded room, pair up and find yourself some space somewhere in the auditorium. Introducing yourself is a good thing. Find some space in the auditorium to stand facing one another with maybe 1.5 feet between you. Make it somebody you do not know. There's certainly room down here. Again, you should be facing one another. Introduce yourself if you haven't already. Get out of your seat if you haven't already. Everyone up. Everyone up, everyone up, everyone up. Don't make me come back there. Okay, stand now. Stand quietly. You should be about 1 foot away from your partner. I see people sitting in the back. Stand up, please. Okay, what I'd like you to do is put your hands up in front of you. Your palms should be very, very close, but not touching. And I want you to gaze very, very deeply in your partner's eyes. Now, you may feel an impulse to giggle. Freud said that laughter was all about fear. Fight that. Fight the impulse to talk. Shh. Gaze into your partner's eyes. Deeply. Shh. You want to cultivate focus here. You're working to establish a strong connection with your partner. Gaze into their eyes. Turkle would argue this is a level of connection with people we spend our days trying to avoid. Gaze very deeply in their eyes. Eyes are beautiful things. They're deep things. Lose yourself in your partner's eyes. Shh. Focus. Focus. And you're working to establish a very deep connection. When you feel that connection, when you can feel it strong, when you're confident in that connection, should be no talking. You should be focused on your partner entirely, lost in their eyes. When you feel that connection, Start to move your hands very slowly together without breaking your gaze. Now remember, you're to be a mirror here. You need to be moving simultaneously. I shouldn't be looking at you and seeing one person leading and the other following. The movement should be very, very slow at first. Now, if you get out of sync, if you feel the connection drop, if you laugh, that's okay, shake it off. Put your hands up again and work to reestablish that connection. Shh, there should be no talking. Rise to the challenge of this connection here. And again, your hands should not be touching, but you should feel energy. You should feel a connection as you move. And again, if the connection breaks, that's okay. Shake it off. Reestablish. There should be no talking. The movement should be slow. As your connection becomes deeper, you may make the movement together more complex. You might add movement in your shoulders, moving your head back and forth. Again, slowly. The trick is not to outwit your partner. The trick is to move together, to have a connection, to have an energy together that allows you to move simultaneously. Shh. Talking is a result of nervousness. It means you're not paying attention, you're not focusing. And again, the goal here is not moving in the most complicated way possible. The challenge here, the goal is that connection. Your eyes should not be leaving your partner's eyes. You should not be looking anywhere else but your partner's eyes. And again, experiment. If you feel strong as you're moving your hands, try your feet, but it should be wordlessly. Try your elbow, your shoulder. And if the connection drops, that's okay. Shake it off and refocus. Shh. Okay, now I'd like you to find a second person you don't know and do it again. Find another person you do not know. Introduce yourself. Is everybody paired up with somebody they do not know? Anybody need a partner? Okay, stand and face your new partner. Shh. Stand and face your new partner. Before you put your hands up, gaze into their eyes. Take a moment first and identify how these eyes are different than your last partner's. The shape, the color, the feeling. Shh. And start to focus again. Start to find that connection. You probably will find this a little bit easier this time. Put your hands up in front of you. Again, you should be relatively close to your partner. Your hands should be inches away, but not touching. And focus. Find that connection, and when you feel it strongly, when you feel that energy, start to move very slowly with your hands. And again, if you feel the impulse to laugh, you feel talking, the connection's broken, that's okay. Shake it off, take a deep breath, and reestablish the connection. And again, begin with the hands, but as you feel more confident in the connection with your partner, you can start to lean to one side, move your head, fingers may go. But again, the goal is not to do it rapidly. The goal is not to do it in the most complex manner possible. It's to be simultaneous. It's precise. It's an expression of how connected you are in this moment. Shh, 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 shh. Okay. Stay right there. Stay where you are. One more part. I heard the groan. One more part. You all, if you ever take a class with me, you all will have to step up on every other student who walks in and gets hit with this the first day. You'll know the drill. All right, now you're there with your partner. Again, look in their eyes. Now that you've profoundly engaged with each other physically, I want to further challenge you. With your partner right now, I'd like you to have a meaningful conversation. Now wait 1 second. In this conversation, you need to demonstrate to your partner that you have listened and have sincerely shared. Take a risk here. Questions and answers about hometowns, on-campus addresses, course schedules, majors, siblings, favorite anythings, and pets are banned, as are the Facebook essentials, likes and dislikes. Be meaningful here. Share something you haven't shared with anyone yet. A single word, for example, that describes everything you missed from home or the experience of the last week or so. Is there something you're curious about relating to this place or this experience or your chosen major that you've not shared with anyone? And respond sincerely to what your partner shares. Evolve what you both share into a conversation. Give what you both share some energy and movement forward so that you will not forget this conversation. This conversation. So take a minute. Take a risk here. Share something that is important. Okay. Okay, wind it down. With a promise to talk again, return to your seats. All right. Well, that brings us to the other reading I provided in preparation for this talk, and it's Franz Kafka's very short story, The Top, which for me perfectly allegorizes not only the work of the Academy, but also the passion of those within it, students and faculty alike. Kafka's The Top depicts a philosopher who spends his spare time around children so he can grab their tops in spin. To catch a top spinning makes him happy for a moment, in his belief that the understanding of any detail, that of a spinning top, for instance, is sufficient for the understanding of all things. As soon as the top begins to spin, he runs breathlessly after it, and his hope turns to certainty. But when he holds the silly piece of wood in his hand, he feels nauseous. Delight turns to disgust. Yet, hope of understanding continues to fill him each time top-spinning preparations begin among the children. Now, celebrated poet Anne Carson feels that this story is about the delight we take in metaphor, the physics of language in play. She goes on to say that the story also is about why we love to fall in love. Sadly, the current divorce rate belies our success in truly understanding it. Where is the delight in this story then, especially if total understanding is ultimately elusive? For Carson, to be running breathlessly, but not yet arrived, is itself delightful, a suspended moment of living hope. She doesn't believe Kafka's philosopher really runs after understanding. Rather, she feels he's become a philosopher in order to furnish himself with a pretext for running after tops. The Academy is dedicated to setting tops into motion, full of individuals who profess delight not only in understanding, but in the pursuit of understanding. We seek to decipher truth, but simultaneously to affirm and perpetuate the play of interpretation itself through the nourishing of faith, risk, and curiosity. In a talk I gave last spring at Honors Convocation, I mentioned a remark made by one of the most inspirational professors I had as an undergraduate. He revealed that his mentor had advised him how to be effective in the classroom. Number one, open the windows or the students will fall asleep. And number two, shut the door. And these were maxims he followed very closely, to the extent that students brought blankets to his class on crisp February mornings. Nonetheless, surprisingly enough, for students and for teachers, the two directives lead to meaningful practice. Shut the doors. What happens in a classroom is private, sacred, serious. But open the windows. Let the air in, the light. Integrate the classroom with the life outside and ahead. And then simply begin. Your adventure during these years will be transformative. The vision of how it matters will expand. The honors experience becomes a state of mind rather than merely a remembered place and time. It never leaves you. It challenges you to make a lifelong commitment to active intellectual, emotional, and spiritual stretching. It directs you to modify your goals but retain their audaciousness, to work meaningfully, to live meaningfully, and pursue both goals with sincerity, vigor, and boldness. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. In answer to the always urgent question, what now, as well as the question with which I began, how, I will conclude my talk tonight the same way Sherry Turkle does her piece. Look up, look at one another, and let's start the conversation. Thank you.